Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Hello everybody and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello everyone.
We're broadcasting on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley on CIVL from the unceded territory of the Stolo people. Now, if you're new to the show, let me introduce Unlocking Your Truth. It is a talk show and we focus on everything to do with metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a discussion topic. And sometimes we have a guest. And today is one of those days when we have a guest.
Yay!
Yay! And today's guest is a storyteller. And she is going to inspire us by sharing experiences that she's had walking and working with archangels and the Divine Mother. That sounds fantastic.
Yay again.
Yes. And so our guest today is Dr. Ruth Anderson. And she describes herself as a lifelong student, I like that, teacher, and international best-selling award-winning author. And she retired. She used to be have a career in special education and public school administration. And once she'd retired, she had a second calling, which she now embraces, as an intuitive reader and healer. And she became a reverend of the Church of Inner Light and was given a ministry to witness and participate in the healing of souls with and without bodies in the ethereal realm called the Open Clinic. She's the author of a couple of books at least. One is called One Love, Divine Healing at Open Clinic. And the other is called Walking with Spirit, Divine Illuminations on Life, Death and Beyond. So Ruth is really passionate to share with us today energetic concepts and her experiences with the spiritual divinity. And she's also a radio host, and her show's called Walking with Spirit. And it's on the International Angels Network on Blog Talk Radio. And, because she's a healer and intuitive reader, she also sees clients and does her work one-on-one with individuals as well. Welcome to the show, Ruth.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you both.
Thank you. We're very excited to talk about you. Talk to you, not talk about you.
we do that on the side.
Oh, yes. Oh, we'd have, yes, exactly. So now, first of all, it would be really nice for us and our listeners to find out a little bit more about your background. And one of the things I'm interested in is that your background is in the field of education. And after doing that career in the field of education, you had a personal transformation that propelled you into a second calling, which is the intuitive work that you do. And so I'm really interested in that transition and who Ruth was while she was working in the education system and who Ruth is now, because I imagine that at least the traditional education system doesn't really encourage our intuitive nature. And so were you always intuitive, or were you just focused intellectually until you retired and had this transformation? How did it unfold for you?
So I had intuitive experiences as a child, but not so many that I had to really stop and pay attention to. But I knew that I was very connected to spirit, and I knew that I was connected to the Holy Spirit growing up in a Christian home. And I didn't really pay too much attention to that intuitive part of me until my girlfriend, who I used to teach with in California, she became quite ill. And she would send me somehow through spirit intuitive messages that something was wrong with her, and then it would happen to her. And it ended up that she had stomach cancer and we didn't realize it. But through her illness and afterwards, she came to me so frequently that I had to stop and pay attention to this intuitive thing that was happening to me. So she passed away 4 months after she got sick. And she came to me, she helped me plan her celebration of life in spirit. And I started going to intuitives asking, what am I experiencing? And they taught me how to use my own intuition. And that's what started this whole second career.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think it's worth saying to the listeners, we all are intuitive, and sometimes it's really great to have a teacher or a mentor that can help show you how to access that, because in our current culture, at least in the West, we're not really taught it, and it can really help to have an alternative education in how to access your intuitive senses. Now, so I understand that your books chronicle your journey of knowing and working with spiritual divinity. And also, as I think we mentioned before, you work with archangels and the Divine Mother. Can you explain more about your personal journey, and also what it's for the listeners, what is it like to work with Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel and the Divine Mother? What's your experience of that, and how do they come to you, and how do they help you, and how do they help the people who come to you?
Sure. So the first archangel that I met was Archangel Michael, and it was the day that I said, there's no such thing as angels, because I'd never seen them. And I had looked online and all I would see was these voluptuous, vixeny, breasted angels. And I thought, that just doesn't resonate with the way I see things. And so I literally said out loud, that's it, there's no such thing as angels. Later that morning, I went into meditation and I was shown this feathery thing and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I backed up. It was the back of an angel's wing, and it was Archangel Michael. And so I spent quite a bit of time with him through meditation. And then I met Archangel Raphael, and in meditation, they would literally take me in meditation to places and show me things. Then I was introduced to Divine Mother, Archangel Gabriel, and in the last year, the number of archangels have just multiplied. Yeah. So when you ask what it's like for me right now, Archangel, they're actually here with me in spirit. Archangel Metatron is so driven and has so many things that he wants completed now that he's a force to be reckoned with. Archangel Michael is guiding my path and my journey right now. Divine Mother is giving her input, and Gabrielle is there as a source of support for me when I have questions, when I'm writing. But they all have their own purpose, and they all have their own personality with me. So some days I might go into meditation and I might only see 2, and other days like today, I had like 8 or 9 there. Yeah. So it just depends on what my purpose is in the world that day, as to who all's there to support and in what ways they're there to support.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, I like your answer very much, because I myself have noticed this year in particular an explosion of spiritual helpers. And exactly like you say, there's so many of them. They're all so focused on us right now. And exactly, who shows up depends on what's being done in the moment.
That's right. That's right. And it's so interesting to me because while I'm working on one project, they're backfilling another project. I mean, yesterday I literally got a children's book on angels downloaded. And then this morning there was another topic. And it's like, okay, hold on, guys. I mean, I can only do so many things at a time.
Yes.
I'm trying to be a good steward.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, take notes and get everything done just exactly as they're wanting. But there is such an urgency to their messages and their needs right now. It's kind of, I don't want to say overwhelming because it's not overwhelming, but it is challenging and it's incredibly fulfilling because I believe that the work I'm doing is helping people in ways that I have no idea.
I agree. And, I share that experience of just so much creativity and how to be able to translate that into time and space because they're coming from multidimensional reality, right? And I think that's why it's so important for us to help as many people to do this type of work, because there are more projects that we all can handle, really.
Yes, there are. When I feel overwhelmed, I will say to Archangel Metatron, you need to bend time on this. You need to help me get all of this done in the time frame that I have, because I have children, I have a life outside of this. Although right now it doesn't look like it because I'm so focused on a couple of projects. But I need someone in angel form that can literally bend time and just move it out of the way so everything that needs to get out into the world can get out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I guess for our listeners, that's why meditation is so important. And grounding is so important because it helps you be focused and it helps you express your divine creativity in a more efficient and effective way. So, I'm really enjoying listening to your stories, and I want to ask you about your books. So, one of your books is called Walking with Spirit. So maybe first of all, you can tell us what that book is about.
Walking with Spirit, to me, means living really with a foot in both realms. So being aware and alive in this physical realm with a foot in the spiritual realm, and being open to everything that Spirit wants me to learn. Yeah. So what that means is that I never know what my day is going to look like. I never know who I'm going to speak with, or what the outcome of it might be. Yeah. So that's what I call walking with Spirit. So what this book is about, it is about walking with Spirit, and it's about the lessons that Spirit has taught me in the last year and a half that have to do with life, death, what happens when we die, about the levels of the residency in the Cathedral of Souls, and about the energetic frequencies of each of those levels, and even how those levels have a mirror impact or a look at how people act and behave in the physical realm. So it's really kind of fascinating. The levels of energy there are mirrored here in the physical realm. So that's what Walking with Spirit.
Okay, well, that sounds really interesting. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about it. But before I do, I love what you said about, you don't know what's going to happen every day to the next, because I feel like that. And in fact, I tend to have my booking calendar, it gets booked up the day of, right? Which is funny because most people want to run it so that they know massively in advance, what it's like. But I prefer the opposite. I prefer what shows up in the moment. So now about your book, you were talking about these different frequency levels in the spirit realm and how they are reflected in our daily lives on Earth. So can you give us a bit more information about what you're meaning by that?
Sure, I'm happy to. So when we die, we go through, it's all that we've heard about near-death experiences with going through the dark tunnel and the amazing healing of God. So I had a near-death experience shown to me through meditation. Thankfully, I didn't have to almost die physically to see it. But I went to this tribunal, this panel of 7 beings. The one in the middle was an archangel. Yeah. And I was relegated to a level. And as soon as I heard it, it was the 3rd level. And I knew I was not supposed to be in the 3rd level. I mean, I was physically sick in body because I knew 3rd level was wrong for me. So I telepathically spoke to the panel and they decided 2nd level was fine. And then I felt immediately better. So obviously I know where that is. I've been there before. And then I was taken into the Cathedral of Souls, which is it's like an incredibly massive apartment building, for lack of a better term. But what I've seen is 7 levels. The very tip-top one is heaven, and only about 2% of the population of souls ends up there. It follows the bell curve, actually. Yeah. So then the second level is very high level vibrational frequencies. The higher you go, the higher the vibrational level, frequencies. So 1 is heaven, 2 is very moral, very conscious, God-loving folks. The difference between 1 and 2 is there's a Christ consciousness in level 1. Level 3, a lot of folks go there. It's good folks. It's the folks that you hope live next door to you, right? They're moral. They have good integrity, good intentions. Level 4, with the bell curve, the most number of souls are living there. A little shadier. I mean, for the most part, pretty good folks, but just this little bit of shadiness to them. When you get to level 5, you're getting into less morality, heavier energy. Level 6 is quite low level frequency. It's dark, it's opaque, it's hard to see there. No conscience at all. I've seen every single layer. Level 7 is truly the hell, fire, and brimstone that we read about in the Bible. And frankly, I have no intention of seeing anything from like 4 down ever again. But I'm glad I saw it, because then I can speak about it. But at any rate, so you're looking at these levels of vibrational frequencies that the souls are residing in. And then Spirit showed me that those same levels are mirrored in the physical realm, and they're mirrored in vibrational frequencies and behaviors associated with those frequencies. So at the very tip top, we've got very, very small percentage of people that are truly God-loving, very connected to spirit, very high morality, high energetic vibrational frequencies. Next level, very high souls, but they just don't have that Christ consciousness.
Right.
Level 3, good folks. Level 4, pretty good folks with a little bit of, not sure that I can totally trust that person or not. Level 5, probably not somebody I want to see in a dark alley. Level 6 and level 7. Level 6, you've got folks like drug lords or maybe a serial killer. I mean, pretty low, darn low vibrational frequencies and behaviors. And level 7, that's reserved for the folks that truly hate humanity and truly love evil. And thankfully, it's a very small percentage, but it's there, mirrored for us in the physical realm.
Right.
So what that tells me, Leslie, is that if you're a level 2 or a level 1 or 3, don't date somebody who's a level 5 or 6.
Right.
Or if you want to start a business, don't go into business with somebody who's at a lower level than you. Because
In actual fact, that doesn't really work because you're not on the same
right.
thing.
Right. And you will be disappointed every single time that they are not capable of living and behaving at your level of vibrational frequency.
Right. But is it also not true that humanity, we're all on a journey to go through those levels? And it's just that some of us, the old souls who've had so many experiences that we've learned, some of us are at that higher vibrational frequency and some are just at different stages in that journey, and it's all just part of human consciousness evolving.
That's right. It's not saying that one is good
Yes.
or bad. It just is.
Yeah. Well, this is a wonderful, fascinating conversation. I just looked at the clock and realized that we actually should pause for an advertisement. So we'll do that now. And listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey and our guest, Dr. Ruth Anderson. And today we're having a wonderful conversation about spirit, really, about consciousness, about angels, about our true spiritual nature, and about our journey here on Earth. Tune back in for some more after these messages.
It's a good one.
Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, with Corey, and today's guest, Dr. Ruth Anderson. If you're just tuning in, Unlocking Your Truth is about metaphysics and spirituality, and in particular, today's show is quite a wide-ranging exploration of who we are as spiritual beings and our journey on this planet, and all of the wonderful spiritual helpers that are here to help us with our journey. Now, before the break, we were talking about Ruth's book, which is called Walking with Spirit, and I was going to ask you next about your other book, but I think Corey's got a question for you.
Yeah, I do actually, and we're talking about the different levels. I know there's in the Bible, I think it even talks, I think it's in Corinthians, it talks about the different levels of that they talk about 3 different levels in the kingdom of heaven, if you want to call it that, God's kingdom, and all 3 are glorious levels. It's very interesting that you've come across, because I think in Christianity, everybody wants to, most teachings are everything is level. We're all par for the course. There are no better places. There are no worse places. So it's interesting that you've broken through that, and that it came from a heavenly advisor. Just a quick question on that. We have we meet a lot of people, and a lot of them are starting to awaken with regards to their spiritual and their intuitive abilities, just like you have. But sometimes there's questioning or fear, even fear sometimes, that all of a sudden I'm feeling somebody else's emotions that I could never feel before. What would you say to somebody about that? Like if they've started that awakening, what's your advice?
I know that energy is everywhere, and so you can even just walk into a room sometimes and feel residual energy that's left there from someone. Not saying that they're dead, they might have just walked down the hall, but you can walk into the room and sense that they've been there. For somebody who is just starting out in learning about energy, I think the most important thing is learning how to ground yourself and learning how to have an aura up and have angels with you, so you aren't just soaking up everybody's energy. I think the life of the empath is difficult. Thankfully, I'm not an empath, but folks that just don't have an aura up around them and are just bombarded with everybody else's energy and therefore emotions. So I would say learn energetic protection.
Couldn't agree more.
I think that's Leslie's favorite word, grounding, ground.
Ground, yes.
She grinds it in.
Yes. So, so we're really talking about the human journey of spiritual unfoldment, and how you're explaining it through your life and your work. And so, your other book is called One Love. And I'm wondering, is that book your autobiography? Or is it just little snippets of lessons that I've learned along my path?
It's a combination of both, actually. The first couple of chapters are the intuitive experiences that I had before I even knew that that's what it was. And it sort of follows my becoming an intuitive and embracing being an intuitive, because I had this Christianity piece of, gosh, you can't be a Christian and be intuitive, because then you must be in cahoots with the devil.
Yes.
It took me 2 years to get that in place. And it took Jesus Christ coming to me in meditation and saying, use the gifts that God gave you.
Yes. And what do you think he was doing when he was on earth?
I figured if Christ is okay with it, I think I'm good. So One Love Divine Healing, it goes from my journey to becoming an intuitive and being given a ministry by the archangels of being able to go into the ethereal realm and watch healing taking place. And the healing that's taking place there is of souls, both that have already left a body and those that are still in bodies. And I can see which is which, because if they are in a body, it's a white mass of energy. If they're out of body, it's a gray mass of energy. And because I'm intuitive, I can read the situation. I can see what kind of healing they're there for. And I can see which of the archangels is working with them and what they're doing with them. And when I'm there, God's divine healing love is coming down through me and out through my hands. I don't believe that I'm doing the healing there. I believe I'm helping hold space for the healing that takes place there. So the first book, One Love, talks about some of the situations that I saw of divine healing at Open Clinic. And it's the archangels and Divine Mother that are doing the healing there.
So maybe at this point we should explain to the listeners what is Open Clinic, because we've not mentioned it apart from in the introduction. So tell them what the Open Clinic is.
Sure. I was given the name Open Clinic during meditation, and what I was seeing was this amazingly immense space in the ethereal realm. There were no walls, so any number of souls could come in at any time, receive the healing, and go. And they gave me the name Open Clinic because it's open all the time, that any soul at any time can go and receive healing.
And that's so wonderful, and you know, can't stress this enough for people, that you are never, ever, ever alone. You are never alone. You may feel alone in your human condition, but there is so much love for you, and there is so much healing and support available for you in the spirit realm. It always is. The door is always open.
Yes, the door is always open, but there are souls, obviously, that don't believe in God.
Yes.
Even the ones over there. And so I have seen souls come into Open Clinic that have no intention of being there for healing. Yeah. And when I approached them, they were quite angry and very repulsed by the divine healing that was taking place there. So just because a soul is off in the ethereal realm still doesn't mean that they accept God or the divinity.
Or that they're ready to change. Because I like what you said, like, I don't feel like I'm sort of doing the healing, because all healing ultimately is self-healing. As a healer, we can hold the space, we can help pump the energy through your system to charge your batteries, but all healing is ultimately self-healing, and ultimately It's because you have to commit, you have to want it, you have to decide, I'm ready for this and I want to change. Sounds like you agree because you're nodding.
I'm not, it's bad radio. I'm not saying anything.
Oh, yeah. So listeners, because I know from my own work, I see many people every day who say, I feel so alone. I feel so, especially because I'm sure the same is with you. We're seeing the ones who are awakening. We're seeing the ones who are at that awakening level, and most of them are surrounded by families and people at work who aren't on the same frequency, and they feel so alone, they feel so different, they feel like outcasts, they feel like they don't fit in, they feel like there's something wrong with them. And in fact, the opposite is true.
And I experienced that for 2.5, 3 years of this journey, and it was so lonesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I want a mentor. I want somebody who has experienced the same things that I have, that can walk one step in front of me and let me know what I'm going to be learning. That person didn't exist. And the only place I could turn to was up, because they were the ones teaching me. And it has taken me 3 years to find people in my tribe. I finally am connecting with people that are like-minded, that have had similar experiences with spirit, that understand me. And I finally feel like I have found a home. But it took me 3 years. So I completely understand that isolation.
Yeah, it seems to be a common part of the journey, and really people are being invited or challenged to accept themselves and love themselves regardless of anything else, and realize their divine nature within. That's part of the journey. Now there was something else, gosh, I wanted to ask you, and it's popped out of my mind, so give me a moment to think of it.
While you're thinking, just
yes,
say,
go ahead. Yeah.
That's why your radio show is so critical. And I think that's why my radio show is so critical, because we can tell people, you do have a community, you do have a tribe, and come listen to this radio show and you can hear other like-minded people. You aren't alone.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Critical.
Yes, I know. And, it's funny because we have thousands of people who listen to our podcast, and probably most of them we don't meet. And occasionally someone will write and say, it's been a lifesaver, and, I imagine that the ones who write and say that is the tip of the iceberg. So it's wonderful to know that these episodes are going out and really helping people.
And
So
it also makes it good for us too, because when you're doing something that is worthwhile, it gives you good feeling. It's a wonderful experience to be doing something that can help people, that can actually touch people's lives, as opposed to just cranking out songs for the next 4 to 6 hours.
Right, it's life-changing.
Yeah. So I remembered my question.
Okay.
And so in listening to your journey, well, maybe I'll say it in a different way. One of the things that I'm encountering fairly often is, and let's put it this way, people are starting to open up spiritually, psychically, intuitively, and become aware of what they've stored inside themselves, and become aware of what beings are around them and interfering with them. And so, what do you have to say? Really the question's about discernment. Everyone out there, well, I would love to have my own experience with an angel. I'd love to be guided by an angel. I'd love to be able to do what you do. But how do I tell that it's a real angel? How do I tell it's not some evil being from the lower realms trying to trick me? Because I meet a lot of people who do get entangled with those kinds of entities. So what would you say to help with that?
I think anybody that wants to, and I'm going to use the word dabble, which also has a negative or a sort of evil feeling to it. But I think anybody who is interested in getting involved in this really needs to get training from somebody who knows what in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's huge. And to anybody listening who is hearing some entities are not necessarily divine spirits or divine.
Right.
So you don't have to listen to everybody who's talking to you, first of all. Second of all, anytime you feel like an entity or a being is saying something to you that is going against your grain, against your morality, against your integrity or your safety, don't listen and go get assistance.
Yeah. Exactly. Go get assistance. Go get assistance. So I agree with everything that you said there, really. And it's like find a mentor, find a teacher. It will accelerate your unfoldment.
That's right. And I really think it's the safest way to do it.
Yeah, so do I. So let's see. Now, we were talking about your book, The One Love. So what else should we ask you about that book? What else would you like to tell us?
I think what is really critical to my mission is that everybody listening knows, A, that they're not alone, B, that they can reach out to the spiritual divinity. And it is as easy as going into meditation or prayer, opening your heart, opening your mind, and just being open to listening. I think so many times people go into prayer and they just use it as an opportunity to talk, rather than an opportunity to really be in conversation and listen. And I know the times that I just go in with no agenda and I really just go in to listen, I learn so much. Spirit takes that opportunity and teaches me. I love it. I just think so many times people go into prayer with an agenda. And I think that's limiting.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. We're going to take another break. And listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, Corey, and Dr. Ruth Anderson. And this is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, and we've been having a really wonderful conversation with Dr. Ruth. We'll be back after these messages, and you're listening.
You may even hear from me, and you may even hear from me.
Yeah, I think we should let Corey talk. We should let Corey talk a little bit after the break.
No, actually, I'm just enjoying this one. It's a great show.
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey and with Dr. Ruth Anderson, who's really giving us a wonderful, wonderful education about the spirit realm, about the archangels, about the nature of life and death and the journey that we travel through in our earthly journey and in our spiritual journey. And so I think our listeners love angels. And so in this segment, I'd really, really love to talk more about the angels. Again, before I do, Corey, I think you have a question, do you?
Yeah, not a question as much. I have a little bit of a comment, and maybe Ruth can go forward on that. I had a really bad experience about 12 years ago with somebody, and it was very funny. I was sitting with a friend one day having a piece of pie and a hot chocolate. And this person says to me, she says, the stuff that's coming out of your mouth is not you. She says, it doesn't sound like you at all. So she recommended a book about angel healing. And at the back, there was a healing that you could do with Michael, to cut cords. And literally, you did a visual, it was a visual, sort of like a meditation on actually watching Michael come in and with his sword and just cutting those cords. And I did that. And the next day, my life changed. It was incredible. Up until that point, I sort of said, yeah, okay, I'm not so sure about those things. But at that point, my mind was completely opened up to a whole different concept of reality when it comes to spirituality. Do you have other people that have those experiences?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you take probably anybody off the street or that comes into your office, there is somebody who is connected to them, whether it's their child or their spouse or a sister or a mother. I think most of us do have somebody that's corded into us. Now, it's not helpful to us, and it's not helpful to the person that's corded into them. And it doesn't have to be all that complicated to get uncorded from them. But I think it's an incredibly common experience. So I don't think it has to be a horrible, scary experience. I think it's just sort of a reality. I think it means you're human.
That's very, very true. I mean, being corded is everybody's corded. I mean, one way, shape, or form. So the other thing too is, I mean, recently in our metaphysical news, we all heard about this wonderful person that decided to go back to Christianity, full bore, and turned around and said that all the New Age and metaphysical things that she had spoken about and talked about were all from the dark side. And so you've gone a little bit of the other direction. I won't say you've lost your Christianity, but you've actually opened up more to it. How did that feel for you? How did that feel, that shift itself? Because I've made that shift. I went from a very stringent religious background to, next thing you know, just, wow, this is not what it's about. How was that for you?
So a couple of things come to mind. When I was talking about the voluptuous vixeny angels, that's the same ilk as what you're describing. And that was the piece that I couldn't connect with because it felt like it was of a darker energy to me. So I can't buy into that. What Spirit taught me was I have to, as a teacher, as a leader in intuitive spirituality, I have to be able to recognize the darkness when I see it. And so that meant that I had to learn about it, which is why I got to see hell and levels 5, 6, and 7. So I don't like that, but I understand I have to know about it. The beings that I connect with are all of extremely high vibrational energy. There's nothing evil or demonic about any of the one of them. They're all archangels and the Divine Mother. So with my own Christianity, I broadened it to be able to experience the spiritual divinity that are described in the Bible, but I know them a little more intimately than what's described in the Bible. I don't think there's anything on the dark side about that at all.
Oh no, I agree with you. There's no question there. It's just that, of course, you can take, with this world of duality that we live in. I mean, as opposed to spirituality, the world of duality we live in, there are both sides to that coin. I mean, I've had situations where I've invited a friend when I was in mainstream to my church. He invited me to his church for something, and I went. It was a really wonderful experience. I got to see something different. And I invited him to my church, and he said, "Oh, I can't do that. My pastor would have a bird if he ever found that I was going to a different type of church for any reason whatsoever." It's very weird. It's very interesting how we can be so limited in our concepts of spirituality, spirit, and everything that goes along with it. I mean, we're in a very, I guess, Christian community here, and we go to some events, and we have a booth occasionally, go to an event, and we have people come up to us, that are telling us, oh, this is wrong, this is bad, no, this is no good. It talks about it in the Bible. But the funny thing is, we're doing more work for the spiritual side than most people are, which I find interesting, just like yourself.
Yeah, and of course the angels don't discriminate, do they, Ruth?
They are loving, and they will be there to support anyone. But Corey, along those lines, in meditation, I have seen God, as many people have in their own way. But the God that I have seen is not an old white man.
No.
It's an immensely huge vibrational energy. And it is all loving, and it is compassionate, and it's non-denominational, and it just is love. And I kind of struggle when I hear people say, well, I can't go to that church because, that's not God. Like,
yeah.
Okay, but the God I see is one love, truly a non-denominational.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, Leslie. It's interesting. My first experience coming out of just mainstream, in essence, or actually my second experience, I was sitting in a seminar once, and somebody started talking about spirit guides. And I was sitting there, what the heck are spirit guides? I've never heard of this before. I've heard of guardian angels, but never spirit guides. And he says, would you like to meet your spirit guide? And I said, sure. And I had talked to somebody about healing, but energy healing and things, and that I was interested in it. And so we went into this meditation to meet our spirit guide. And I'm standing there. All of a sudden, I look down the beach that I was standing on, and walking towards me comes this man. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden, I recognize the energy, and it's Jesus Christ. And I say, at first, I'm taken back a little bit, like, by that. And I said, am I a healer? And he looks at me and says, you're a healer, now go and heal. And he turns around and walks away. Like from that day forward, my life was just like completely different, because I realized that, like you say, that God, Jesus, the archangels, the angels, they're all open to us. They will visit it. It's not an hallucination. I mean, I have spirit guides and archetypes, archetypal people that help me in my healing practices, and it's very interesting. It was a wonderful experience.
How validating!
Yes. Oh yeah, it's marvelous.
So, I'm going to share my very, very, very first conscious experience with angels, at least that I can recall now, as a way of asking another question about them. So when I was probably still in my 20s, and I injured my back, and I couldn't walk for 3 weeks. I literally was just lying on my bed for 3 weeks. And I noticed at that time that there was this glorious music, like the angelic choirs surrounding me. And there was no music playing, and yet this music was here. And then, because it was not much to do, I was reading or I was drawing, and I started drawing angels. And then I realized, I think this music is coming from angels. And it took me about a year to recover from that injury. And on occasion, as I was recovering, I'd walk somewhere, and then I'd reach a point where I would go, oh my God, I don't think that I can get back where I came from.
Wow.
And every time I would reach a point like that, this music, this beautiful music, would just surround me. And it was, I mean, some people refer to it as the music of the spheres. It was angelic music. It was healing, angelic music. And I knew that it meant you're supported and everything's going to be okay. So what can you tell us about how angels work with sound and music in a healing capacity?
So I have heard angelic music like that, and all I could do was cry.
Yes.
Boy, it hit so deep within me. I didn't have words for it. I could hardly breathe. I don't know how you explain it to somebody who's never heard it.
That's true. I had another experience on a business trip, and I was a bit jet lagged, I guess. I was in Germany, and I woke up and there was an angel standing at the bottom of my bed singing. And it was just singing, and it was just like, oh, I can feel the tears welling up now. And it just was beautiful, and it made me cry. And I wasn't too sure why this angel was doing this. But there it was.
So one of my favorite, well, not one of my favorite, but one of the things that's happened with me with angels is waking up and seeing 4 warrior angels around me. And it's like, holy cow, guys, what's going on that I need this protection right now? And what I have gotten in the last month, as I'm taking my message more and more out into the world, I have been given the largest angel for protection. It's huge. And I just marvel that I've got this protection.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder, what am I up against that I'm needing this level of protection?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's intriguing, but I'm glad.
We're all being, I mean, this has happened to me in this year, just this acceleration. And also we are being given missions, really, for want of a better word. I've been given some new missions as well, and new supporters around me to help with that mission. So it's very exciting and validating to hear other people having the same experiences, actually.
Yes. So Leslie, can I tell you a story? Because it still confuses me. I was told through Spirit that I was supposed to meet this celebrity. And I thought, awesome, bring it on. I'm ready. I can take it. The celebrity showed up to me in spirit and got a healing in spirit and then went on. And I thought, was that it? So, okay. So I still don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But you had people come to you in spirit for healing that in the earthly realm, they don't even know that they've come to you in spirit. Have you ever had that experience?
Let me think about that for a minute. Well, I would say yes. I would say yes, because I'm always doing work out of the body on the astral realm, for example, with all sorts of people. I can't think of a recent example of that, but I know very early on in the early days of my awakening, something used to happen quite frequently, and I think this is quite common for people when they're waking up, which is I would become aware of someone who'd just passed on, who was having a problem. And I didn't know them and I'd never met them, but I would just help them. And so that used to happen a lot in the very early days. And you know, and yes, you know, I'm constantly meeting with people who seem like old friends and doing work with them that maybe I don't meet in my waking consciousness.
Right. You meet someone and it's like, I'm home because I've known you, I've worked with you, I've loved you before, and I'm home. Yes, I've had that happen several times this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, this is such a fantastic conversation, and it would be wonderful if we could continue forever. But at least in this time-space reality, we have a segment to fit the conversation into. So let's ask you, how can our listeners find out more about you? How can they purchase your books, and how can they get in touch?
Great. So my website is www.theministryonline.com. And on Facebook, I'm at The Ministry Online. And my email is openclinic1@gmail.com. And both books are on Amazon. So it's One Love, Divine Healing at Open Clinic. It's available paperback and Audible and Kindle. And then the second book, Walking with Spirit, Divine Illuminations on Life, Death, and Beyond, also available on Amazon. And coming out, hopefully by Valentine's, is another book called Listening to Light, Love Letters from Walking with Spirit. And that is about the personal connections and things that I've learned from really walking with Divine Mother.
That's wonderful. And maybe to end the show, would one of the archangels like to pass on a message? A very short message to...
A very short message.
A really short message. So Archangel Michael wants you to know, wants your listeners to know, to call on the angels, that the angels are there. And the angels love them and want to help them in their daily lives, knowing how difficult it can be on earth.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listeners, you can call them up anytime. You've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey and Dr. Ruth Anderson. We are here every Tuesday night from 7 to 8 Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.